Hey soccer fans, this is Nick reminding you to check out Sports Spider. If you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as updated as possible on the Chicago Fire or any other team, hit the link in the description to check out SportsSpider.com. Hey soccer fans, this is Nick at the Feed the Fire podcast. It is Thursday, October 3rd, and last night, Wednesday, the Fire traveled to Charlotte and played to a 4-3 loss. I really didn't know what to expect out of this game. Definitely not 7 goals, but at least with the playoffs out of reach, the Fire kind of showed that they still cared a little bit. In other Major League Soccer news, Inter Miami clinches the Supporter Shield with a victory over the Columbus Crew, and if they win their last couple games, they would set the single season point record. So I don't know about you, would you prefer the Supporter Shield or the MLS Cup? I'll give you my thoughts on that in the second half of the show, and I've got a lot of stats and trivia around the Supporter Shield as well to share with you, so stay tuned. We're talking all of that and more in tonight's episode. Before we get into it, just a quick housekeeping matter. You can interact with me on social media at Glasshouse Soccer. You can email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. And I want to thank Baz Vallis for sending me a message. And he actually responded to my last episode where we talked about how the Fire were passing a lot in the middle of the field. Their midfielders were all bunched up, especially if you look at the passing charts that are put out there by some of the stat keepers on social media. And I said, yeah, really not surprising to see that the Fire can only pass backwards and around the midfield because their team is so bunched up and easy to defend against. But Baz says, wow, this concept of passing back and bunching midfield has been going on since Pato and before. I yell this all the time. My wife always reminds me they can't hear me. And that I can absolutely sympathize with, Baz. And I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers and other sports fans can also sympathize with your wife's telling you something like, maybe if you scream louder, they can hear you. Or maybe if you keep screaming, it's going to change the game, as my wife always says sarcastically. So, Baz, I'm with you on all of that. He goes on to say, who do they think they are? City? You need great players to pull this off. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The Fire do not have those great players right now in the midfield who can take a defender one-on-one or who can pass with purpose. It's one thing just to knock the ball around and almost kind of play a possession keep away kind of a thing. Not even a keep away, just kind of keep for yourself kind of a game as the Fire did last week. But it's a completely different thing to actually use those passes to pull defenders out of position and then exploit the space. And we haven't seen that from the Fire. One other housekeeping matter, the Chicago Fire's final game of the season, we got to wait a couple weeks for, so you can ramp up for it. October 19th at Soldier Field, early kickoff, 5 o'clock kickoff against Nashville SC. And I had been texting with a friend of mine who works for the Chicago Fire, and she has assured me that everyone working in the organization, or working for the organization, is working very hard for all the grand finale festivities and fun things that they have planned. I think it's fan appreciation night, last game of the season, so there is a lot going on at Soldier Field on the 19th against Nashville, so make sure you get out to the stadium for that. Now let's get back into the Chicago Fire content here. As I mentioned, 4-3 loss Wednesday night, October 2nd at Charlotte. My initial thought going into this match was just don't embarrass yourselves. Maybe we rotate the squad. Maybe we see some of the younger guys get some minutes, see what they can do, put a little film out on them for whoever the next sporting officer is, next coach is. Maybe we can see some of that. Didn't exactly happen. As I mentioned, 4-3 loss. Karl Swiderski gets things going in the 8th minute, so the Chicago Fire can't even hold till double digits in the minutes column there before giving up a goal. Fabian Herbers with a great one to tie it in the 25th. Junior Urso then pulls Charlotte ahead in the 30th, and it's Karol Swiderski again in the 45th +1 first half stoppage time to give them a 3-1 comfortable lead going into halftime. And that's 2 weeks in a row now the Chicago Fire have given up a goal in first half stoppage time. I feel like this has been a trend in Major League Soccer over the last year or two, and maybe even in international soccer, where you're seeing stoppage time goals become more and more common. I don't know if it's the defensive team or the team that's been in the, on their defensive foot most of the match is just waiting to get to that whistle, and then they kind of let themselves down. I don't know if it's all of a sudden an attacking team is like, oh, we got to push the last couple minutes. I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's a trend. And we even see in this match a second half stoppage time goal. But we'll get to that. So again, it's 3-1 at halftime. And then in the second half, you see Abada for Charlotte put them up 4-1. Essentially, the game is over at that point. But, Chicago's got to make it interesting. They got to keep your watching for a little bit. For those of you who didn't turn it off at halftime or after the Abada goal, Acosta scores an absolute banger. But, I guess pro players can get good shots off when the other team decides not to even try to play defense. That, I think, is how little respect they had for Acosta's offensive prowess. But he rockets one in the 67th minute. The Fire are now down 2 goals, but then it's Tom Barlow in 90+3 who makes the scoreline look respectable. It's 4-3. It was a great through ball. Barlow's offside. He leaves it. Mueller actually runs onto it. He should do better. He's being defended. The keeper comes out. I don't think he realized how little time he had to get the shot off. Puts it right into the keeper, but then it deflects right to a wide open Barlow who taps it in. So good on Barlow. That's one of those right spot, right time, work rate kind of goals. And it seems like that's all he's going to be capable of if he stays with the Chicago Fire. Looking at the Fire's starting lineup, they were in their usual 3-5-2. Brady in net. Chihos, Omsberg, and Suke, left to right. Suke absolutely got cooked on one of those goals. Even Matt Doyle over at MLS started doing some little tactical breakdowns of little goals he saw or defensive actions that he sees. And this was one of his first ones. It was pointing out how Suke just kind of is ball watching while Charlotte's passing right around him. Your midfielders, Lassiter and Dean, kind of outside midfielders, wingbacks. Your central midfielders, Herbers, Jimenez, and Acosta. And up top, starting Brian Gutierrez as striker alongside Yorgos Koutsias. Maybe this is, are they trying something different with Gutierrez? Do they think that he just can't play that midfield role for him to run a full 90, play offense and defense? Or is this just a result of not having Kuipers even available on the bench? They just gave him time off, and Selassie the time off as well. Selassie the new father, Kuipers also the new father, but we did see him in the match against Toronto a little bit. So I don't know what the Fire are thinking and how they're managing the roster, but really does it care? Does it really matter that much? I would have liked... the subs that we get coming in. You see Tom Barlow come in, Kellen Acosta come in, Justin Reynolds, Chris Mueller, and Fede Navarro, and Tobias Sahlquist. The thing about Fede Navarro, he comes in, and within a minute of entering the field, he gets a yellow card. That's not shocking to me, but he should no longer be on the roster after this. He should not play in the last game against Nashville. He should be moved ASAP. I don't care if the Fire have to eat that money. Fede Navarro is not panning out as a player. The Fire don't know how to develop him. They don't even know how to control him because he didn't get a yellow card for a bad tackle. Now, granted, it was a bad tackle, and maybe it's a yellow card if it comes later on in the match, if it comes after him playing a little bit and committing a few other fouls. But you know what? It's the first minute of the second half. You're not even in the game for a minute. You come through behind a guy, come from behind, come through the guy, hard foul, definite foul, borderline yellow. Then he starts mouthing off to the ref, and the ref doesn't even hesitate at that point. He's like, "You're going to keep talking? Boom, here's the yellow." So Fede Navarro is a head case, needs to go this offseason. I don't know who they plan on using their buyout on because people are saying it's got to be Suke. I forget what Federico Navarro's contract situation is, but I think he's still under contract, especially because he was a U22 player. He's got to go. He is doing absolutely nothing for this team. But the other players on the bench who didn't get in, Spencer Ritchie in goal, of course, Mauricio Pineda, Carlos Terran, those guys still not 100%, and then Alana Aragoni. There's a lot of speculation going on social media about, is Aragoni in the doghouse? Are they trying not to use him so they can return him on loan or not trigger anything with the loan deal? I don't know what's going on with Aragoni. I hope they make his move permanent. I really like watching him play in MLS, and I think he could be great with the right coach and some, legit defenders around him. So there's your lineup. Now let's take a look at the statistics of this match. The Fire end the match with 55% possession, 18 shots, 7 on goal, so one of their best offensive output by the numbers. The defense blocked 7 shots, 546 total passes with an 88, call it 89% passing accuracy, passing completion rate. Only 3 corners, but 15 crosses, 1 offside. Their XG is 2. Very high XG for the Chicago Fire. Brady, even though 4 went in, he's still credited with 6 saves. The defense had 3 clearances, 5 fouls, and that 1 yellow card going to Fede Navarro. So those are the stats of the match. If you look at that 5-minute possession interval graphic, the possession does seem to kind of flow back and forth. Kind of a back and forth bit of a game, but again, it was Charlotte making the most of their opportunities. They had an XG of 3. Charlotte, 19 shots, 10 shots on goal. So maybe not even making the most of their opportunities, just converting by volume here, right? 19 shots, 10 on goal, 4 goals for Charlotte there. So some of the observations I had of this game, I've kind of already criticized the lineup and the formation. We've already talked about the defensive effort being absolutely poor, but we saw Salquist have to come in for Chihos early on, so maybe that threw things into flux. I would have expected to see other guys further down the Chicago Fire bench maybe get some minutes. Let me pull up, but they're not even, getting on the game day roster like, gosh, I certainly hope I don't say anyone who is not like any of the CF2 guys, right? I don't want to say someone who's been transferred out or, I know Pareba and Glasgow have already had all their short-term deals, so they couldn't get it. But, any of the other guys on the CF2 squad, bring them up. If you don't have Salase, if you don't have Kuipers, and you're only rostering 2 goalkeepers, which is standard, but some teams will put 3 so they can get their guys up there, their backup keepers up there and training with them. Like, why don't we have some of these younger guys on the roster training on these 4-day kind of mini contracts, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You had 9 guys on the bench plus the 11 on the field. That's 20. You can roster 23. Again, the Fire squandering developmental opportunities here. That's my biggest criticism of this team from their last couple matches, that after being eliminated from the playoffs, they're just doing nothing. They are the absolute perfect definition of a lame duck squad and a lame duck coaching staff. Like, you'd think they might be playing for contracts or playing for that next move or a free agent move, some of these guys. Nope, they don't even care because they know they're making their money here in MLS and they're going to go where they can. Coaching staff. Like, the coaching staff isn't even trying to do anything to try and get their next job. I hope, and they should be, completely cleared out. Anyone who's on this coaching staff should be nowhere near a Chicago Fire sideline next year unless it's on an opposing staff. And Lord help that opposing team that is desperate enough to want to go out and try to sign the likes of Paulo Nagamura, Carlos Garcia, or Frank Klopas. All right? Or any other. Hey, look, Zach Thornton, that's the exception to the rule here. Absolutely, Zach Thornton being the exception to the rule. Give him a lifetime contract. If you're going to let Klopas hang around this long, definitely do it for Zach Thornton. Anyway, we Fire fans, we know what's going on. We know they are bottom of the East. San Jose has clinched the wooden spoon, so the Fire don't have to worry about that kind of hardware at the very least. But yeah, it's been tough, and hopefully they can at least finish the season with a win, a high note at Nashville on October 19th. I will be there with my younger son who is celebrating a birthday this month. He wanted to go to the game for his birthday. Plus, he's a Nashville fan as well as a Chicago Fire fan. So his first soccer game, no, not his first soccer game, but one of his first soccer games, we were down in Nashville for the season opener a couple of years ago. It was when they unveiled their Johnny Cash Man in Black jersey. Cash's son did the pregame guitar riff. It was so much fun. He loved it. And so he's always had a soft spot for Nashville ever since. So he's really excited to go see the Chicago Fire play Nashville at the end of the season. Nashville currently sits 2 spots above the Fire. They also cannot make the playoffs, it looks like. Oh no, they still have 2 more games. So they're still in the running. I forget the Chicago Fire are the only Eastern Conference team with 33 matches, other than Toronto. So Nashville still has a slim chance of making the playoffs if they can win their last couple games. So they will be playing well against the Chicago Fire, or they will want to be playing well. But they are 13th on 33 points there. So there's a lot to play for Nashville. Okay, and with that, let's take our halftime break here and recognize our sponsor, Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Icelandic for clear, Skira water comes from a spring in a government-protected nature preserve in Iceland with naturally low mineral content. This isn't your average water. Clearly, pun intended, it's one of the best. And you can find yourself a bottle or 3 of Skira Icelandic Spring Water at your local 7-Eleven. Now, for the second half of the show, we're going to take a step back and look around the league, and not really around the whole league, but we're going to look down in Miami as Inter Miami wins the 2024 Supporters Shield. They will finish the season with the best record in MLS after defeating the Columbus Crew this past week. Now, the irony of it, as it was pointed out on social media, was the Supporters Shield is presented by the ISC. Why can't I think of the definition of it? The Supporters Council, Independent Supporters Council. Why did I want to say international? I don't know what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm thinking FIFA here or something. No. The Independent Supporters Council presents the shield to the team with the best regular season record. And the supporters section for the club that is registered with the ISC kind of holds the shield for the club, right? The irony here is Inter Miami has no supporters groups that are actually registered with the ISC. There are 4 of them who have applied, and the joke is if all of them are rejected, then Inter Miami can't accept, quote unquote, the shield. I think that's just kind of a funny little MLS-ism, if you will, but I'm sure some of those groups will be recognized by the ISC and they'll have the shield, and then next year that group will pass it on to the next club and to the next supporters group. But now the pressure is on Miami to pull off the double, to win MLS Cup after winning the Supporters Shield. Looking historically, only 7 teams have won both the MLS Cup and the Supporters Shield in the same season. DC United in 97 and 99, Kansas City in 2000, the Galaxy in 2002, Columbus Crew in 2008, the Galaxy again in 2011, and LAFC in 2022. So those are the 7 times where a club has won the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup in the same season. So the odds are against Miami, but they're not terrible odds, considering the league's been around 28 years and 7 times it's happened. So not the worst odds if you're looking at it from a pure numbers standpoint. Also, you've seen that it has happened throughout the course of the league history, a couple times in the 90s, a couple times in the 2000s, once in the 2010s, and then once in the 2020s. So it's not like there's a particular era where a team was dominating and winning all this stuff. And it was across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different teams. So it's possible that Miami does it when you look at it from a historical perspective. By the way, Fire fans, the 2003 Chicago Fire are the only Supporters Shield winners to advance to MLS Cup and then lose MLS Cup. All other Supporters Shield winners that didn't win the double lost in the earlier rounds of the playoffs. So that's another kind of precarious piece of bar trivia for the Chicago Fire there. Do I think Inter Miami does it? No, I don't. I always bet against any particular team. Always take the field in the playoff scenario like that, especially when you're playing a best-of-3 series, and then you've got to win 3 more games. So that's why I'm going to bet. I would bet against them, but it's not going to surprise me if they do it. And speaking of, they've got to win a best-of-3 and then 3 more games. If you look at that as a 5-game win streak, let's say, you're going to have to win 2 of 3 and then 3 more. So maybe 5. You got to win 5 of 6. But for the sake of this segment, for this little bit I'm going to do, say it's a 5-game win streak. There have been only 7 5-game win streaks this season. 2 by Miami, one by Columbus, one by Cincinnati, one by LAFC, Seattle, and New York City. That FC Cincinnati win streak was 7 games and 12 of 14 total before they ended up coming back to earth hard and losing 4 in a row. LAFC had a 6-game win streak, and again, Seattle, New York, Columbus, and Miami all had 5-game win streaks. So those, if you use the NCAA men's basketball tournament logic, like look at a team who can rattle off 5 and 6 wins as a team to pick to maybe pull off some upsets or go further in the tournament, that if you want to use that metric, yeah, in the East, Miami, Columbus, Cincinnati, New York. In the West, LAFC and Seattle. Just for comparison's sake and reference here, the Chicago Fire this season have had only 1 win streak, and that was a 2-game win streak. And that 2-game win streak was a part of their 4-game point streak, where they had 2 draws and then 2 wins midway through the season. I think that was when the infamous Dave Baldwin tweet came out saying we're trending in the right direction. So that is the only Fire's win streak this entire season. So yeah, it's not an easy feat to string 5 in a row, but the Fire haven't even had 3. So looking at a few other stats and kind of trivia here, the other thing to keep in mind, Miami could also set the single season points record, as we mentioned at the top of the show. The current record is 73 points set by the 2021 New England Revolution, and man, they were a machine that year. An absolute machine with Boo and Hill just lighting up the offense there. LAFC previously held the record at 72 points set back in their 2019 season. The Red Bulls had a 71-point season in 2018, and then 3 other teams have had 69-point seasons. Toronto in 2019, Atlanta in 2018, and Cincinnati in 2023 last year. So the funny thing about that is Toronto in 2019 would have set the record, would have almost set the record, but for LAFC surpassing them that same year. Same thing for Atlanta. Atlanta would have set the record at 69 points in 2018, but the Red Bulls beat them out that year. So you had 2 record-setting seasons, 2 record-setting teams within one season, essentially. But I think Atlanta would much rather have that cup in 2018. Or would they? That's the debate, right? That's the question. Would you rather have the Supporter Shield or would you rather have the MLS Cup? I don't know how you want to frame it. Do you want to frame it, what would you rather have? What's more prestigious? What's better for your club, for your city? What would your supporters sections rather you win the Supporter Shield so they can, tote that around? If you want to talk about winning in soccer, you win cups, not plates. So do people hold the cup in a higher esteem? Personally, I'd rather have the MLS Cup. If I was playing on a team or coaching a team, I would rather win the MLS Cup. Again, we talked about having that multi-game win streak, which is an extremely difficult thing to do. So I get that if the Supporter Shield says you're the best team over the course of 34 games, over the course of an entire regular season, but to be the MLS Cup champions, you have to be the best team for 5 straight games, 5 straight weeks, which is a very, very difficult thing to do and rarely happens during the course of the season, as we saw. Other reasons why I'd rather have the MLS Cup, that's how the league was set up. The league was set up to say our champion is the team that wins MLS Cup, not the Supporter Shield. So with that as your focus, that should be how, if I were a coach or player, that's what I would kind of make my priority is, are we going to win MLS Cup? And I get some of the waters get muddied with a lot of these teams because they get into either Champions League, Champions Cup, or Leagues Cup, or U.S. Open Cup, some of these other tournaments, and then mid-season you have to, or if they're in the Shield race, you've got to make that determination of, do I go all in on one of these trophies and not maybe rotate my squad as much and trot out my starters and try to take advantage of that? Or am I in it for the long haul? Am I in it to get a home field advantage so I can focus on the MLS Cup playoffs? So that is a really, really tough decision. We talk about it all the time, about how teams have to make that decision and whether or not it affects their play throughout the season. And maybe it costs teams the playoffs, the shot at MLS Cup. But again, I'm a Cup guy. I think the Cup is more prestigious. It's what the league was set up for. It's that 5-game win streak you've got to go on to really prove you're the best in that time, especially at the end of the season. When you're injured, when you're tired, and when you're just running on adrenaline and the desire for that cup. Also, as an American sports league and as an American sports fan, playoffs are what we look forward to. We love playoffs as Americans. We love tournaments. We love playoffs. We love brackets. We love the drama. We love the rivalries that come out of that. And if you want to compare it to, some of the big European leagues that don't have the playoffs, yeah, you have the drama because you're competing against these other teams, these other high-level teams, to see who's going to it's a race, right? You take the lead and you want to hold it, or you got to catch them. It's almost a race. And you've got hundreds of years of history to have developed rivalries. Here in MLS, the playoffs are where the rivalries happen. And in American pro sports, playoffs is where the rivalries happen and the excitement happens because teams have started to kind of take the foot off the gas across all American sports during the regular season, right? We've heard about the NBA implementing a rule where coaches can get fined or suspended if they bench some of their star players for rest or whatever it is. So we have seen the de-emphasis of the regular season across American sports, and that's why I think that I would rather have MLS Cup, because that is what everyone is going all in for. A lot of respect for the Shield. I'm not putting down the Shield to put up the Cup. I think the Cup can stand on its own without it. But that's my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think about it. At Glasshouse Soccer on social media. GlassHouseSoccer@gmail.com is the email address, and I hope to hear all your takes on this over the course of the next week or two, and as the season winds up and we get our Shield winner, possibly becoming a double winner, possibly becoming a record setter. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Please make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review, all that great stuff out on social media to help us move up the algorithms. Share the show, grow the show, tell a friend about it, send them a link. You want to get a shout out, and so maybe that can draw them in a little bit. That would definitely be great. Email me. I'll say a few names. I'll get it out there. Like I said, to George, Dean, and Tommy, they just found me last week after going to a Fire game. I'm trying to find some Fire recaps online, and hey, guess what popped up? My YouTube video. So hopefully you boys are listening again this week, and hopefully everyone continues to listen, especially into the off season, where we continue all of our Chicago Fire and MLS content. And as always, let's go Fire.